So, lads, I think this is another day of talking about the most delusional fan base in the history of sport, and this might be the worst thing I have seen. This might be the worst thing I have ever seen coming from the fan base of one A'ja Wilson.
Following the recent harsh truth bombs from Jeff Teague and Cheryl Miller, basketball fans are going crazy. Everyone is talking about the utter pandemonium that ensued in the basketball world after A.A. Wilson's baseless claim about beating NBA players was quickly dismissed.
But this conversation needs to just be stopped at this stage. It's ridiculous.
The positive aspects, everyone, the entire sports world is buzzing about the intense basketball drama we're getting into today. After A.A. Wilson made a statement that, well, got everyone talking, Jeff Teague and Cheryl Miller interrupted with some sobering remarks that completely altered the course of events.
But it doesn't make the statement false, and the reason why this statement has to be made is because of idiots like the A'ja Wilson fan base. Like, this statement should not have to be made. This is not beneficial in any way for basketball. The problem is this statement has to be made when people are actually arguing that A'ja Wilson would be an NBA player. A'ja Wilson not only wouldn't be an NBA player, A'ja Wilson would not make any Division I college team.
Let me start by breaking this down for you, because this story is crazy from beginning to end. A.A. Wilson, who is currently dominating the WNBA, appeared on a podcast with NBA player Josh Hart. If you don't know A.A., we're talking about someone who has won multiple All-Star MVP awards, championship rings, and been crushing it in the WNBA. She has it all, but what she said on this podcast is what made everyone go crazy.
Would be like 8 to 11. Me.
It's not that.
I get ball first.
You get ball first. She does get ball first.
Not gonna get it back. And you
So-
like, that's gonna be your time. Like, that's gonna be your period, which is fine. I'm not saying you're gonna go scoreless, but 8 to 11, I feel like it's pretty solid.
Wilson didn't merely imply during this conversation that she could compete with Hart. She stated outright that she could defeat him in a one-on-one match and not just win by a slim margin. For those who don't play basketball, she specifically predicted that she would win 8 to 11, which isn't a close game, but rather a fairly comfortable victory.
So what do you think it'll be, Josh? Don't piss me off. Do not.
Let's take a moment to discuss Josh Hart, because this context is important. Hart isn't just an NBA benchwarmer. He's been an integral member of some excellent NBA teams and was even a member of the USA World Championship squad. We're talking about a man who has demonstrated that he is capable of playing at the highest level in men's basketball.
If you play, you would not get 11 points against Josh Hart if you played to 200. That's not a knock on A'ja Wilson. Josh Hart is a really good NBA player. Josh Hart was a starting 5 member on a USA World Championship team. Josh Hart would literally first step, blow by A'ja Wilson, jump in the air, and if there's no contact, dunk it. Or if there is enough contact, he'd be high enough that's an open layup every single time. A'ja Wilson would put the ball on the floor, Josh Hart would tip it. A'ja Wilson, the only way she wouldn't get the ball stolen every single time she dribbled it in front of Josh Hart is if she tried to back down Josh Hart. And Josh Hart would stand there.
Hart's response to Wilson's assertion was priceless. He simply burst out laughing, not in a cruel manner, but rather as if he was having a hard time believing what he was hearing. This is when things became heated. Wilson was dead serious about this and refused to back down, staring Hart in the eyes and saying, "Don't irritate me."
Like, the reality of the situation is like, just physically, athleticism-wise. Because that's as important as anything in basketball. If skill was all that mattered, you'd see so many Filipinos in the NBA. But skill's not all that matters. Size and athleticism is what matters.
At that point, Jeff Teague joined the conversation, and the narrative takes a direction that no one anticipated. After deciding it was time for some serious conversation, Teague, an NBA All-Star and an expert on the game, came in with some shocking facts.
It's simple biology, especially in a sport where it really matters, like basketball. But obviously people are attacking Jeff Teague, and this is like, people don't know basketball.
Teague's response went beyond Wilson's assertion to make a more general point about the enormous disparity between NBA and WNBA players. He claimed that Wilson couldn't defeat any NBA player, not even the guys on the bench. That may sound harsh, but Teague was only getting started. This is where Teague's analysis becomes really intriguing as he began to break down the depth of talent in men's basketball. He noted that the majority of NBA bench players, not even the starters, but the guys who hardly get playing time, were absolute monsters in high school and college. We're talking about guys who were scoring 40 points per game in high school and still averaging 20 points in college.
People are actually arguing that AJ Wilson would be an NBA player. AJ Wilson not only wouldn't be an NBA player, AJ Wilson would not make any Division I college team. She is a 6'4" center. And that is she is a 6'4" center with no athleticism. If she played men's basketball, she is a 6'4" center with zero athleticism, who I'm not sure can dunk, and is a pretty poor three-point.
That AJ Wilson would play in the NBA. AJ Wilson not only wouldn't be an NBA player, AJ Wilson would not make any Division I college team. She is a 6 feet 4 inches center, and that is she is a 6 center who with no athleticism. If she played men's basketball, she is a 64 center with zero athleticism, who I'm not sure can dunk and is a pretty poor three-point shooter. Think about that for a second. These are the guys who aren't even good enough to start in the NBA, the guys who might play 5 or 10 minutes a game, if they're lucky. Even they were completely dominating at every level before making it to the pros. That's the level of athleticism and skill we're talking about. But Teague wasn't done. He started breaking down the physical aspects of the game that most people don't think about: the speed, the strength, the vertical leap. These aren't just slight differences. We're talking about fundamental physical capabilities that create a gap that skill alone can't bridge. This isn't about discrediting Wilson's achievements. She's a phenomenal basketball player who's done things in the WNBA that are absolutely incredible. She's breaking records, winning championships, and inspiring a whole new generation of players. But when we start talking about competing against NBA players, we're entering a completely different conversation. Let's dive into some specifics about what makes this such a mismatch. First, there's the speed factor. NBA players aren't just fast, they're explosively fast. We're talking about guys who can cover the entire length of the court in a matter of seconds. Their first step is so quick it looks like they're teleporting. Even the big guy in the NBA move like guards compared to most other basketball players. Then there is the element of strength. NBA players are not just tall, they're extremely strong. Years of professional strength training coupled with elite genetics produce athletes who can power through situations that would stop most players cold. Functional basketball strength is more than just weight room strength. It's the capacity to keep control while absorbing contact in order to finish through opponents. To hold another important factor is the vertical leap. When people watch NBA games on TV, they don't really comprehend how high these guys can jump. We're talking about players who can grab quarters off the top of the backboard and guys who can jump so high they can put their elbows on the rim. Hold your position against someone trying to move you. From shooting over defenders to blocking shots to rebounding, these physical advantages produce a cascade effect that affects every aspect of the game. When you can jump higher, move faster, and power through contact more easily, it changes the game. It's not just about dunking. How to play defense, how to produce images, how to complete at the rim. Being larger or stronger isn't as important as how those physical attributes translate into basketball skills. This brings us to another important point that Teague made: the level of competition these NBA players have faced throughout their careers. Most of these guys have been playing against elite competition since they were teenagers at tournaments, high school championships, college basketball. At every level, they've had to prove themselves against other elite athletes. Think about what that means in terms of development. By the time these players reach the NBA, they've spent years competing against other incredible athletes. They've had to develop their skills while facing defenders who could match them physically. They've had to learn how to score against players who could jump just as high, move just as fast, and push back just as hard. That's why when Teague says Wilson couldn't be any NBA player, he's not trying to be disrespectful. He's just acknowledging the reality of the physical gaps we're talking about. Even the last guy on an NBA bench has spent his entire career competing against and beating out other elite male athletes to earn that spot. And here's something else to consider. The NBA game itself is played at a totally different level of intensity and speed. The players are stronger, the pace is quicker, and there is very little room for error. All players, even the bench players, must be able to play at that level in order to remain in the league. It is not about skill and isolation. Basketball isn't played in a vacuum. Eventually, the physical realities of the game come into play, which is where these comparisons fall apart. Wilson's basketball IQ is off the charts, her footwork is amazing, and her knowledge of the game is elite. If basketball was just about skill, height and athleticism wouldn't be such important factors in scouting and player development, but they are because elite competition requires a combination of skill, physical tools, and the ability to apply those skills. This leads us to Cheryl Miller's story, and believe me, if you don't know, let me put it this way. We're talking about someone who many consider to be the best women's basketball player of her time. Some even claim that she would have been better than Wilson if she had played in the WNBA. Miller's resume is absolutely stacked. She led her team to multiple NCAA championships, dominated college basketball at USC, and broke records left and right. She was so good in high school that she received over 250 scholarship offers. That's not a typo. We're talking about someone who is essentially changing the game of women's basketball. However, even Cheryl Miller, with all of her talent and dominance, received a reality check that nobody saw coming when she chose to play one-on-one against her younger brother, Reggie Miller, the NBA Hall of Famer who used to torch the New York Knicks and is regarded as one of the greatest shooters of all time. The worst part is that this wasn't even NBA Reggie. This wasn't even college Reggie. It was high school freshman Miller. Reggie, the story Cheryl tells about what happened next is both hilarious and eye-opening. She went downstairs to play, expecting to see her little brother, but instead she found herself staring up at someone who had shot up to 6 feet 7 inches in. Despite this, Cheryl, being the competitor, still believed she could take him. Cheryl came home from college during Christmas break feeling confident about her game, at the top of her game, dominating college basketball, and believing she could handle her little brother. What happened next has become a legendary story in basketball circles. Reggie didn't simply block the shot. Instead, he pinned it so forcefully that Cheryl's response tells you everything you need to know about the gap we're talking about. Instead of trying again, Cheryl went for a shot, presumably assuming she had this in the bag. This story perfectly captures what Jeff Teague was attempting to explain about AA. Cheryl walked straight into the kitchen and sat down with her mother. She never played one-on-one against Reggie again. Consider that one of the greatest women's basketball players ever, and she was unable to handle her high school freshman brother. Wilson argues that recognizing the physical facts that lead to these significant differences in how the game can be played is more important than disparaging women's basketball or anyone's accomplishments. Let's examine what makes these comparisons so problematic first. Size. In addition to being a center in the WNBA, Wilson's height of 6 feet 4 inches makes her a guard in men's basketball. In NCAA men's basketball, she would be attempting to guard players who are not only taller but also noticeably stronger and more explosive. Factor Wilson is a fantastic athlete in the WNBA, but men's basketball has very different athletic standards. We're talking about a game where players routinely jump over one another for rebounds, and even point guards can dunk with ease. The game's speed is just on another level, which leads us to another point that is frequently missed in these discussions: the NBA player's development path. By the time an individual reaches the league, they have been competing against elite male athletes their entire lives, and they have had to hone their skills while facing opponents who could match or surpass them. Even males competing in lower-tier men's professional leagues worldwide would probably be too physically demanding. Teague brought up this point, pointing out that there are players in different nations' second-tier leagues who could dominate these games not because they are more skilled, but rather because the physical difference is simply too great. Here's another point to think about when comparing the NBA and WNBA's playing styles. When players can consistently get their hands on the ball, the NBA game is played above the rim. It's not just about dunks. It's about how the threat of playing above the rim alters every aspect of the game, including how defenses must respond, how shots are contested, how rebounds are grabbed, and more. For this reason, when Wilson claims she could defeat Josh Hart 8-11, it's not just improbable, it's almost impossible. Wilson would find it nearly impossible to get clean shots off on defense due to Hart's speed, power, and jumping abilities. She would have no means of stopping him from reaching the rim whenever he wanted to, but the issue is, none of this should matter. The WNBA is a fantastic league with talented athletes accomplishing incredible feats. Wilson is among the greatest players in WNBA history, setting records and expanding the realm of what is feasible in women's basketball. Making parallels to NBA players doesn't improve that legacy, or the actual discussion.